Multiple outfits. Oh, no, I think I'm good. All right. It's time for HCAT. Da 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 HCAT. Da da da. Da, 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 da. What is that from? Isn't that like some weird Hollywood song? That's a song. I don't know what's. Isn't it like something for Hollywood? Da, 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 da. Okay, you know what? I'm good at other things. All right, welcome to HCAT. Today we're gonna go over some stuff, and I'm excited about that. So basically, ooh, this is actually really hard for me to see. Can I scale this? How do I make this bigger? Hello, well, welcome in.
Hey Jane, hey Kyle. Oh, interesting that I'm still the Enigma next door here. Yeah, I thought I changed my handle on all my Discords, but that's okay. I'll be the Enigma next door for today.
It's perfect. I like your little cat fox thing. That's cute.
Oh, could you tell that's what it is just by looking at? Oh,
It it
um,
it gives cat fox bunny to me a little bit. I don't know, somewhere in there.
yeah, yeah, it's supposed to be a cross between a kitten and a bunny.
Perfect. Yep, that makes sense. Yep, I love it. Okay, I'm gonna put the thing in here to upload. Wait, why is it so hard to upload a file? What? Hang on a sec. Hmm? Upload file, nothing happens. Okay, one sec. How have you been?
Uh, my life has been a bit of a roller coaster, but I'm proud of myself for like managing to not have my autistic burnout get worse despite a lot of external stuff happening.
Yeah.
How about you? Yeah, I've been a lot of like moments from your TikTok and yeah,
Yes,
excited.
I am all over the place. I Things are good, like good things are happening in the midst of horrible things happening on a kind of more like meta level. I'm
Right.
Yeah, like you've heard kind of my mission in life, and I'm like, oh, this is horrible for my mission in life and or life.
Mhm. Yeah, I hear that. With a lot of external stuff that's going on. And yeah, I did want to just, and also like we can talk more about anything that you don't want to talk about on stream, off stream as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, I did want to just like check in with like how you're doing at some point.
that would be cool. Likewise. Yeah, I'm trying to gosh. The latest thing that I was sharing on my TikTok, so like I called my assessor who gave me my autism diagnosis just to be like, "So, uh what do you think we should do?" Or like, "Is anything happening about this?" And his response, he gave
Mm,
me a message back, and like I'll truncate it, but basically he doesn't know what to do either. And also
mm.
he's like, RFK Jr. is crazy. I'm like, "Yep."
Yeah. Um, yeah, I hear all of that. And personally, I have been intentionally engaging with the topics that are more like today's, like what can we do as an individual? Because my approach with like I don't know anything about making change happen at a political level. And like my mission is more to help individuals have agency themselves regardless of these constantly shifting systems around us. And like we need both. We
Hmm.
do need stability in the external world to be able to do any of that. But just
Right.
like my skill set has been like there are two people who are having a conflict. How can
Hmm.
you resolve that? Which is
Hmm.
why like hearing a stream about RFK Jr. is just going to be nothing but triggering for me, which is why like I'm really grateful that like we're having a conversation just about the learning piece, which is
Yes.
like super, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we went over it last week anyway, and it's like there's only so much you can do. But okay, so I learning is great. So I was looking into the
Mhm.
neuroscience of why the node thing is a good idea, because now that I'm going to be teaching dance to people who have a wide range of disabilities, I want to get a little clearer about like what worked for me, why. I think we're
Mhm.
learning backwards, or at least fundamentally
Mhm.
backwards. So most education, like at every level, you review first and then you go over new stuff. That's
Mm.
wrong. So
Huh.
uh, our brains are going to pay attention to novelty and get rewarded for novelty. So if you started with the new information, you're going to use your energy in the beginning half when it rewards you the most. So instead of doing something that's unrewarding and cognitively draining first thing and then trying to learn the new stuff, it actually would make a
Mm.
lot more sense to learn the new thing and then review. So I'm trying to apply that in many places as possible, and then I was gonna connect it to like the home project that we do generally here, but it could be extended to anything, and it's a really simple switch. So you know you're going to review the stuff you've already learned or that you're currently working on, like whatever your memory bank of information is for whatever topic, right? Even just self-reflection, you have like something stored, so you know you're going to go back to the stored stuff. But instead of forcing that to the front of your mind with no referent, you're going to give it a new piece of information to then create additional context with. So now you're reinforcing your learning immediately and giving your brain a reward of doing something novel, and you're using your fresh metabolic state, right? Like this is the first thing you're going to do. So this is the most energy you're going to have on something that already like is it's cognitively draining, but not in the same sense. Like if you do something with memory retrieval, it's like you don't get reward as you're doing it. It that comes later. So the whole idea is that
Mhm.
you're working with as much reward as possible, and you're also
Mhm.
working with how your brain actually consolidates memories. Like it does do new to old. It doesn't do old to new.
Mhm. Um, so I have a question.
Yes.
So with like, consolidating new to old, like if I just took that statement in isolation, I would imagine. Oh, okay, okay. I get it now.
Mhm.
I needed to
Mhm.
process that in time.
Yep.
New to old rather than old to new. Okay, that's really interesting. I would love to learn more about like where you
Yes.
learn like about that from.
Yes. Okay. So I've been spending the past, I don't know, like more than 6 months at this point, but I was looking into memory science. And the reason I'm doing that more is so the stuff that I was talking about with like global configurational local featural, that's from the grid cells, place cells. I've talked about that. That is memory science. So
Mm.
we encode information spatially, even if we don't have like normal spatial sensory development. Like let's say somebody's blind. Did you know that blind people can like hear objects in front of them because of the lack of sound? So if you had somebody that either was congenitally blind or has been blind for a long time, and you have them, let's say, approach a tree, the tree, they will explain it as sounding loud to them because the sound
Mhm.
stops
Mhm.
in a way that's
Mhm.
very obvious. So even that is spatial. So
Right.
they'll be able to put their hand out exactly where the tree is because they can hear the tree, not making, the sound that is something that was permeable would. Okay, so
Mm.
even without a visual orientation, which is our primary sense, we still use that skill. So if you look into memory science and you think about like episodic memory specifically, which is what is your like your, when I say new things, old things, that's really going into your episodic, and that's broadly speaking autobiographical, like you're aware of yourself and you have other thoughts that you can trigger that were happening when you were learning this thing. So like not only is there you talking about like I was in this space, you were probably mind wandering and having other thoughts and associations.
Mm.
And the significance of those associations may have been like, okay,
Mm.
you're getting it. Like they could have been tentative, right? So then when you get the new piece of information, it might actually latch onto some of those what would have been peripheral thoughts, but actually were good intuitive guesses about where it was going next or what the subject is on a more advanced level. So for you to like learn the way that's more intuitive or native to you, you have to incorporate not just the episodic like biographical details of like I was here and this happened, but also your internal monologue and all of those like little epiphanies. And so if we give you the new information first, that's more likely to recall. If I make you go over, oh, this is what we learned last time, and I just like impose something on you, I'm not actually activating your empirical like episodic experience of it. Your experience of it was subjective and included all of these other kind of mind wandering or like free associations and predictions. So for me to trigger that, it makes way more sense for me to say, well, here's new related information and you situate it, and you will, because of like there's a cascade of learning and you've activated it in the right direction. It will go, here's a new thing. What do we know about the world that this is related to? And now you're going to be more likely to trigger like how you've actually like best absorbed the information, because that's not, no one's in your head doing that. Does that make sense? Like now you can use all the other connections that you were using to understand the information that the teacher can't know because you're an individual with a different life experience, and you may even have like a life experience that gives you out of the box thinking about the topic that the teacher doesn't have, but is nonetheless true and a good insight into the thing you're trying to learn. So if you look into like I'm more into like episodic memory, but like the learning process wants the episodic memory to kick in when it's needed, based on the new information. So we're facilitating that if we focus on the new information. Your brain will automatically do this and probably do it better than if we force you to think about an experience of learning that you may not have even had. Like that's the teacher said you should have learned it this way, but what if you didn't because your episodic experience of it was different?
Okay, writing this down. Starting with new stuff leads to focus on your episodic experience,
Yes.
rather than what teacher assumes you had. So
Right.
I really appreciate all of these like perspectives that you've just shared, and I'm trying to integrate them with my experience as someone who's autistic plus either ADHD or possibly something else like CDS. But after looking at the if I remember correctly, CDS is more it includes more challenges with getting started, but not with continuing tasks.
Yes.
Versus I feel that I definitely have challenges with both. And also, so I have been trying to limit the amount of novelty that comes up and the amount of connections that happen, because that can just become super, super overwhelming and quote unquote distracting for me if
Yes.
we were using doing as arriving. Yet there are things that I'm just not able to do in an arriving kind of way. But trying to do as building, like I find myself running into types of overwhelm that I don't see as much with non-ADHD autistic folks.
Yes.
But like something that I did a couple days ago that I think may have helped me avoid having a meltdown, because I know like in similar situations in the past I sometimes did, was I like instead of just saying no, not going to do this right now because I'm overwhelmed, or like trying to force myself to sort this information when it's coming in faster than I can like type or switch between docs or
Mhm.
even like voice record in one stream or anything.
Mhm.
I like came up with a multi-layered system. So using note cards and sticky notes on top of that, kind of like what you've sometimes shown on your morning streams,
Mhm.
when you have like multiple pieces of stuff within stuff. And I
Yes.
also feel like that might, and like the note cards are different colors, so I can like organize things different ways and add more layers like on the fly, like even how I
Mhm.
orient the sticky notes on top of the note cards in like different dimensions. And that was like coming together on the fly, as opposed to like using electronic tools. You often have to make at least some decisions ahead of time,
Mhm.
or like just put everything out there and then organize. That's like too overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
um but yeah, like I think that even thinking that something like this might be like worthwhile
Mhm.
is a helpful first step, as opposed to like, oh, just do fewer things. But I do one thing and connections appear to
Mhm.
all these other things. And even if I don't do in the neurotypical sense, even if I don't have a bunch of conversations, if I don't go to a bunch of events,
Mhm.
my brain still brings up all of these threads, and sometimes they feel relevant,
Yeah.
especially when I'm thinking about like, even though I'm taking a break from working, like what might I want to do with my life in that like contributing to society sense. I've tried like different pre-set up boxes, and I just am not able to compete with neurotypicals because it's like this obstacle course that is set up for a neurotypical brain. So then if I want to do my own thing, I'm like, well, these things are connecting in all these ways that no one else is seeing. Maybe like you might see some of them, some of my other friends who are exploring learning and neurodivergence may see some, but like I'm still the person who has to hold all of that,
Mhm.
even if I have disabilities that make it hard.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And okay, I think you have an undue burden. So I think because we're learning incorrectly, so if we do old to new, that teaches rote memory because you're supposed
Mm,
to memorize what the person expects you to say that
mm,
say
mm,
say happened, right? And that's not the same thing as going into like these deeper levels of learning. It's yeah, it's rote memories, and we're just generally neurodivergent people are not very good at that, or it's very altered. Even if we can do it, we can only do it in certain situations, and it's just not very helpful. So
mm.
I bring that up to say you are doing the kind of learning intuitively because you have to that more people
Mm.
should be doing, but because they're not doing it, there's a lot of work that hasn't been done that you are aware of.
Yes. And that also impacts, I was having a conversation earlier in the neurodivergent writers community Discord, um, about, so there was someone who was talking about, like disclosing autistic needs and like the challenges with just being new to an autism identification, and not seeing other people accommodating. And I brought up how, for one, so even people who are willing to accept the label that I'm autistic or ADHD, if they don't understand the needs beyond that, they can't do anything. So I have to tell them the needs,
Mm-hmm.
but they may not be able to recognize that those needs are a thing. For
Yes.
example, my parents have no concept of emotional labor or
Mm-hmm.
boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I have to start with like first grader level and then distance myself from them because I can only handle so much first graderness in
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
It's like before, learning how neurodivergent people are different, they need to learn about the thing. Um, yeah, I think that was the main point that came up there.
Yeah. No,
Oh
that
yeah,
yeah, that's
another
super real.
point. sorry, there was one more. Is that a lot of neurodiversity content focuses on survival level stuff like sensory, emotions, physiological, but not the other kinds of differences that happen in a like learning or getting things done context,
Yeah.
like memory, for example.
Right. Right. And I honestly think we end up not asking those deeper like mechanisms, those questions about the mechanism of the brain, because we really don't have the agency to change the environment or change the expectation to the degree that we should be. And like my hope is that the typicals are realizing that the system that they're using isn't working well for anybody. Like they've just developed something that atrophies stuff that they also need, that we like, obviously like the neurodivergent person relies on much more exclusively, but the neurotypicals are also losing the skills that they're not, shall we say, uh, appreciating in this current environment. They don't get why we're useful, even when they say something about us having like superpowers. They don't super get it. Also, hi everyone in the chat. I haven't been active on chat, but just wanted to say hello. um
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, sometimes they're kind of patronizing to us as well. They'll be like, oh yeah, you guys can do this incredible thing that like we can't do. I'm like, well, maybe you could if you just like set the environment up for us to all be able to do it together, because right now you're dumping all of your like homework on us and don't even realize it.
Mm. Some neurodivergent people are eating that up. Like, yes,
Yeah.
I can do this thing, you can't pay me.
Right.
But are we getting paid fairly?
Mm-hmm.
Even a lot of the neurodivergent people think this is, I've been there myself, this is going to be X amount of labor, right? Because when we look at the neurotypical aspects of it, like, okay, this much time talking to people, this much people organizing info, this much time organizing info, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, why is this taking 10 times as much time as when I had to organize stuff for class?
Right.
Because there are all these layers of complexity that I've slowly been gaining awareness of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're not as okay when you do try to interface with the system and it's resistant to structural change. It's the neurotypicals would be like, that's really cool, can you make that work even though we don't know what you're talking about and won't change all the problems with the system?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, no, that can't happen. Then like you can't have your system still look like that and this idea interface with it. Don't you see how they are contradictory? And they don't. And then you're going to feel bad and you're going to think they're stupid, and then like that's the resentment piece that I think is happening still, like a lot.
Yeah. And I also think that in these times when the economy is changing so fast, there may be more, it may be a time when it would impact neurotypicals more to learn, and like not knowing may hurt them more. So I'm
Yeah.
optimistic on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I am too. I think I've had really positive interactions with people who maybe are like slightly off the bell curve of neurotypicality, like they're pretty close, but they find it intolerable. So like the window of being able to cope with this is shrinking. So people that used to be able to deal, even though their brains do stuff that's a little bit like more coordinated with a neurodivergent brain, now they're like,
Mhm.
okay, screw this, this isn't working. um so
Yeah.
we've kind of pushed the human, I think, nervous system to its limit with tolerating a bad system.
Yes. Um, yeah, I like moved between those categories
Hmm.
somewhere between a few years ago to a couple years ago. Like I used to say I'm quote unquote borderline autistic. Or
Hmm.
like maybe, I tested inconclusive at 6, but it was like neither here nor there. It's like, okay, maybe you're a little different, a little quirky, but you're good at school, it's fine. Until the systems changed and suddenly I wasn't fine.
Right.
So I'm like very aware of changes. And then some people are like, oh, you were screwed over with like not being given the info you needed about autism. Yes, and
Mhm.
also the systems that genuinely change. My
Yeah.
parents, like, I don't know, where they fall with any of this. They're about to retire in a few years. They
Mhm.
don't need to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Care of them. They didn't do the same for me
Right.
because of timing.
Yep. Yep. I feel that deeply with my own family. Like, yeah, even when my mom sort of exited, I think it was starting to get bad, but she had, kids and could be like, well, I'll just do a stay-at-home mom thing, but I really think like they were burning her out already. Um, and that wasn't so hot. And then my dad was able to kind of keep going with the tech thing until they started mass laying off all the divergent engineers. Oh boy. Anyways, so that, yeah, so I kind of watched that happen, and I think about like my grandparents who have a lot of overlap with my presentation on both sides of my family, and I'm like, okay, they were able to do it, and even my grandmother was able to be like a head nurse. Like, granted, she probably should have been a doctor, but she was
Mhm.
like a head nurse at a major hospital in a major city, and was even goofier than me. So I'm like, oh, like this is really difficult for us to navigate. And I think between like being even like 7, 8, 9, 10, it like got exponentially worse every 5 years to the point where, yeah, there's like no comparison with the stressors that previous generations had. Obviously, your mileage may vary depending on, like, especially in America, what caste, because we have this weird quasi caste system you've been put into, and immigration status and segregation status. Like, so just noting it gets really complex. But like overall, we've been gaslit. Like, oh, things should be getting better, and things are getting much more
Mhm.
convoluted. And the real conversation has never happened about what humans really need to thrive, and it must include us neurodivergent people, because we are, there's a lot more of us than they think, and we're like, we cannot be excluded from this and make it make sense. Like, we are part of the explanation of human like thriving.
Yeah. There are even theories that neurodivergence is the majority because,
Right.
yeah, how many people are going to actually be average in every way?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And that's, yeah, it's been really interesting for me. I mean, the one thing about like going on TikTok, I've done a couple lives with people that are like closer to their 40s, which is really interesting for me, that are kind of like all over the US, because people are just, trying to find some solidarity. That's been interesting, but like a lot of them, like, they have kids, and they realize that their kids are, and then they realize, oh, I must be somewhere near this because I understand some of my child's perspective in a way that's a little bit too uncanny. So there's got to be way more of us, and I don't even know what it is yet. Like, now I'm kind of like, well, let me just hang back for a minute. We're definitely a thing. Like, this is a phenomenon, but I don't know why we're here, and I'm now really biased towards, we're a communal species and we're absolutely supposed to be here.
Yeah. Also, I personally feel like the way I look at it, humans are the way we are, and we're supposed to build systems that like work with humans rather
Right.
than building a random system
Hmm.
and then expecting humans to contort ourselves to that.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Which is why we need to start thinking about like the order of learning, or like consistency. So if we're going to do something that is like a really basic structure, like we're going to impose uh, a method of doing something, right? And it's as basic as like, you're going to learn a new skill. What is the most uh, like, how am I trying to say this, universally helpful way we can do that? And I think something as simple as like this inversion of the old thing and the new thing. And we'll find other things like that, or other, maybe not hacks, but guidelines, or rules of thumb, that if we start to observe them, we can redefine like our daily life. Like, because at this point, maybe that's a good way to segue to this too. Like, rather than looking at all the things that are going wrong way outside of ourselves, maybe we need to individually practice new ways of approaching problems from like a basic structural level, like on the level of like do the new thing before the old thing. Something like that is yeah, where we need to start working.
Yes, I really resonate with that. Because something that I see, um, structural level, sorry, sometimes I need to like finish writing first. Yeah, something that I sometimes see, like when people do hold space for the neurodivergent accessibility conversation, is that people aren't able to articulate their needs beyond something like
Mhm.
talking to people to start. Okay, then we'll give you a job where you don't have to talk to people at all. But now I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And there's not like these kind of deeper conversations to even be able to have. Okay, let's say someone gets a spot where they can even talk with political decision makers. But if they don't know this stuff,
Mhm.
that conversation is not going to go very far, or it's going to snowball foot all the way on the gas in some direction that is as unhelpful as a lot of the ideas being thrown around in the special education sphere and tested at the expense of children's futures.
Right.
And we
Yep.
don't need to go on a tangent there, but
Mhm. Mhm.
just saying, I very much agree with you that we need to be able to address all the systemic stuff that is happening. We need to have more individuals in all different walks of life who are educated about this stuff, who are able to sometimes within their bandwidth have conversations when it comes up,
Mhm.
rather than just getting all offended and triggered and coming in here and venting until we can't even have the conversation here.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like trying to think of the right way to put this. Well, it's something that my principal said about me as a kid. I would like bubble things in, like I would hold things inside of myself until I exploded. And even
Hmm.
even just like if we know that people can melt down when they haven't had time to process, and
Yeah.
they should be processing a little bit at a time. Even if you have to do a big processing session out of the blue sometimes, it should be happening daily. And we've definitely
Mhm.
been discouraged from doing that. So I think we end up with a huge backlog, if that kind of makes sense, of like unprocessed information.
Oh yeah. Like I accumulated a massive backlog last year, and then my like January through part of February was just processing the last 6 months of my life
Hmm.
before that.
Right.
And then at that point, it was like, oh wow, I made so many regrettable decisions.
Hmm.
I wish I would have been able to process this sooner, but I couldn't back then because I had the backlog of stuff, the year that I had already been in autistic burnout, plus the year or two before that, making all the decisions that led to the domino effect that led me there.
Hmm. 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 Yeah. Hmm. Well, and that makes me think too is like maybe I need to keep working on this principle of I obviously really am interested in the whole node thing that I've come up with and I've been refining, because like it could be like a journaling thing too. Like maybe we absolutely have to see like okay, what new thing came in today, and
Hmm.
that will allow us to process who knows what. Well, so that's my point, right? What I was saying earlier, if the episodic encoding has kind of its own logic, like it relative to you and your life and what you can make sense out of things, because in order for you to learn a new concept, you need a metaphor that bridges you to it, and that can be very distinct from one person to the other because we just have different life experiences and different pacing of how we learned certain skills. So it's all going to be unique. So if you're able to learn the new thing and then you have a habit of the old things coming up that need to, or the episodic um, triggers, like who knows when you'll get to process things, but that can make you look a little more unpredictable. Like you might suddenly have a day where you're like, ah, crap, I have to process something really big and traumatic, and I didn't know I was going to have to. So I wonder if that's why we're numbing ourselves, is the process of really learning in this way can be much more unpredictable because the connections that you do make are more out of your control. Like it's the connection that has to be made, but maybe nobody else is making that connection. So if you're the odd one out that like has an episodic memory that connects you to something, you know, really profound or really intense, you're going to have to process that even though everyone got the same new information, right? So that can be a problem in like our culture that definitely punishes people for standing out, punishes you for um, being slower or faster. You know what I mean? Like this whole idea of like you have to keep up with other people. Very doing is arriving. So all of those metaphors that we've absorbed about like what's the right way for you to behave would also potentially like suppress our working this way.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's kind of like some of the things we've talked about with feminism,
Mm-hmm.
where a woman with the same job as a man also has all this emotional labor put on her on top of it. And then now we're like, okay, we got to learn in a way that includes processing past trauma. Well,
Mm-hmm.
some
Mm-hmm.
of us have been disproportionately had a whole bunch of that dumped on us.
Right.
And right now, the way that's being handled is go to therapy. It might take 5 years. Well, how am I supposed to feed myself? How am I supposed to pay for that?
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. It's yeah. It's so ass backwards. Like that's sort of where I'm at with it. Is that like, okay, yeah, I think this is correct, or at least this model is panning out if we think about it this way. Like that makes sense that somebody would get frustrated because it's like, well, how am I supposed to fix something that you're not giving me like a like any correct model of like it's not that you couldn't do this kind of work, but they're not supporting it properly.
Yup. Mm. And then I also still don't understand like what's the point of trauma healing supposed to be? Is it supposed to be like as if the thing never happened? I don't think, okay, like
Hmm.
what does integration even mean beyond just looking quote unquote normal in a social context where people are talking about that thing?
Right, right, right. I don't know. Like I actually I would love to hear from like a contemporary psychologist what they think about that because I'm not sure either. I hmm,
I have a I have a crackpot thing that just came to my head.
okay.
So therapy and I there's probably tons of analogs throughout different times and cultures and peoples that similar to therapy. But when we say therapy in the American slash Western context, that's definitely following a lineage, right? Um, we know the big names like Freud and Jung, or was it Maslow and everybody else? Well, those are psychologists, but the the therapy concept comes from psychology, doesn't it?
Yes, as far as I know.
Um, it kind of gets me think. It kind of got me thinking just now. It's like, but what was the first? Was therapy like, oh, you got to integrate yourself, or oh, to be okay with the world, etc. But then, how much of the concept of therapy is born from a bias of people who probably had their own problems and issues in and out of society, but they're but it seems like the first people making it does generally seem like they were men of their own culture, if that makes sense. Like they weren't necessarily immigrants that had a completely different social reality and came to the place that it was from. It's not like they were women who not only didn't have access to, the same kind of access to education or being in the job place, but in addition to that, also women had, to basically making being told definitely don't think about doing that. Like, not only are we going to make it, we're not even going to make it easy, we're not even going to make it hard, we're going to also give you a bunch of other stuff you have to do. So that the idea of you even being the one who says how we should do this thing is not even a part of the equation. You're just a subject, basically, relative to the inception of that methodology of therapy. So I'm not downplaying therapy. I'm just wondering, though, was the goal to just get people to just keep doing, to just keep going, to just keep being a part of society without cracking? But then we have newer forms of therapy too, where the idea is to like actually say, like, no, this is just wrong. I don't have to be okay with this thing. I don't have to be at peace with this going on. I want to call attention to this thing going on. Isn't that also therapy in a way too? So that's why I was saying it's kind of crackpot, and that's why I keep stopping, because I'm like trying to think through what the idea in my head. But to kind of circle it, it I'm not trying to make a definitive statement. It really is more of a question. I'm just kind of like, huh, that's interesting actually. It's like, oh, let's do therapy, guys. Let's do therapy. Let's do therapy. And sure, but then at the same time, why? And if a part of the why is, that way you can get back to work and pay taxes. That's ultimately what this is for. Or, hey, that way you can, live your life. And it's like, but how can I live my life when this is happening? How can I be at peace when this is happening? Um, is some of that influenced by the beginning part of where, like the origin of what we recognize as therapy in our modern / heavily Western context?
Mm. I really resonate with a lot of that. Yeah, I'm gonna try to find an article that was something about mental health is political. Yeah, I think it was by someone named Danielle Carr, in the New York Times. Okay, I'm not. Okay, here we go. Yes, I do resonate with what you were saying about a lot of it being to keep up the status quo. Um, and that's another, I think another layer of that is the everyone doing it individually, as opposed to having groups where we talk about this stuff, or even if it's group therapy, there's a facilitator, which is good in terms of, keeping it from being a dysregulated domino effect or like people putting emotional labor on each other. But it can also be a way to be like, thanks for sharing. See, everyone struggles with the status quo, but being a good person who's gonna go to heaven means that we do what we can to keep it working.
Right.
And about what you said about culture, actually, yeah, my friend who's originally from China has found a lot of Western therapy ideas ineffective for her cultural context. Or sometimes they pathologize things that are a cultural norm. And, no cultural norm is completely healthy or inclusive. And yet, putting that on an individual and saying you're just like really, really broken, as opposed to recognizing the systemic stuff. Even a Western therapist who means to do the calling out, like you mentioned, but is just so unfamiliar with Chinese culture. It can be an experience of, yeah, systemic stuff is real, but you're just really broken. And then she's like, I'm not broken, I'm Chinese. Are you saying I'm broken because I'm Chinese? And that makes therapy even harder.
Interesting. Hmm. Yeah, that's a good It's a good data point to share. I appreciate that. 'Cause now I'm trying to circle back to where we came to therapy from learning, because we're talking about like trying to learn in this environment, right? Is that how we got to therapy?
Uh, yes, I'm trying to think back. Okay, so I was saying that therapy was the solution that, okay, yeah, when people see systemic issues and get emotional about it, they are sent to therapy to be quote unquote fixed in a one-on-one context to get it out of their system and then go back to the system and act normal the next day, as opposed to
Right.
being put on a TEDx stage or in a space like this.
Gotcha.
And it's also, I think, a fundamental misunderstanding of like what processing is when you have memories. Well, it's see, because it's not the way we think about trauma is very weird and compartmentalized. The more that I think about this, it's not considered to be part of an emergent story. So, like, if I think about, okay, so I've mentioned this too. Is it Penrose? Is it Roger Penrose? It might be. There's somebody else too that works on this, but like, there's this model of space-time that's saying that time is complexity, that you should think of those as synonymous, that an increase in complexity is the like continuation of time. If time is going forward, then complexity is increasing in a like kind of fractal way. Like the things that happened before have more complexity because of the things that have now occurred, right? And so when you situate your past, it should be like a consolidation of everything to increase the meaning of things that have already occurred. So the idea that you would process something and be done with it kind of doesn't make any sense. Like you're going to process it for the rest of your life because time will mean that the meaning will continue to extend and complicate,
Right.
but that's good. So our brains then need to be more sophisticated to handle that complication over time, is what I would argue.
Yeah, that resonates with I saw this one Threads post about complex trauma and finding it being about finding themes as opposed to like a timeline mapping your trauma, because that can be like, okay, that time was really hard and now we're going to heal from that, as opposed to like this continuous learning journey. Right.
The themes can grow because Kyle, you're going to feedback. I love you. Okay. If he stands too close to me, he picks me up. Okay. The themes need to evolve with you, and we can't predict what the themes will ultimately end up as, because all of society is also updating their models and possible themes, right? So you don't know when your therapeutic process will be done. There's kind of no done, but like maybe you can't reach a satisfying point with it until society itself provides you with a new like model. Like I couldn't understand autism until they were like, oh yeah, it is in girls, da da da. Like, you know, like before that, it was really hard to put the pieces together. So like I think that's part of the weird thing about us thinking about our life as a race with each other, like doing as arriving. It doesn't work like that. It's not that like somebody got there before me and then I stole their prize. It was people worked on something long enough that by the time I saw it, I could use it and then apply it to my own understanding. So that process depends on the outside world also doing work. And maybe some of our exhaustion as like neurodivergent people is we're working overtime for a world that is still trying to use the doing as arriving metaphor and race with each other, where I'm like, but no, you guys, you have to stop and like contribute for free to other people what you have realized. Like if you don't share what you think you know, at least, even if we think you're wrong, even if like you're not an objective person, like you have a problem with metacognition or meta awareness, we still have to hear your report, and people aren't reporting. So then the themes don't become more like informed from like the collective knowledge. Like does that, yeah, I think that's what's happening. And like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like a society-wide paywall.
Right.
But the payment can literally be money, but the payment can also be social, your class. It could be your economic class, your social class. It can be your uh, your gender. It can be your skin color. It can be your your relative attractiveness to what society deems as attractive slash what maybe a human would naturally find attractive slash it can be your accent. It could even come down to what you prefer to wear is going to change one's access to the learning materials because they're behind the wall. Like I don't want to
Hoarded.
share.
It's being hoarded. And so, yeah, and people then say,
Yeah.
well, the only way I can reliably get this information is to be part of this in group, and that might be holding back a
Yeah.
lot of changes. I mean, even this is something I've thought. I think about this too much, maybe, but like, I think segregation is weird and will always think it's weird. But in particular, like, I think white is weird because it's like European countries that tried to like very aggressively kill each other for like a whole bunch of centuries, and I'm like, why are you guys all together now? That doesn't really make any sense. Oh, because then you have cult members. If they pop out looking like whatever white is supposed to be at this point, then that's an automatic cult member for that hoarded pile, which is mostly delusional anyway at this point. It's really weird. But that's maybe what's driving people is they say, well, since I don't think people are going to share honest feedback about like the meaning of the world, and we're just going to hoard like this status pretend meaning where we pretend we know what's going on, which is totally, reflected in our leadership that don't know anything that's going on. Like they're now just crazy. But that's what's happening is like, I don't think I'm describing this as well as I should, but it kind of makes sense. Like there's like a hoarding of social reality.
So I have a thought about like what we're like expected to do to get into these in groups. So the like to prove that we have value to them. Like one option is like make shit up and oppress the oppressors back. But if we want to be honest, it's like we end up having to like oppress others, or in the process of oppressing the oppressors with bullshit, that ripple effects to oppressing others. And I just put this poem that I wrote in the chat here. Yeah, about like my experience being ADHD. So it's like, and like feeling like I need to pick a place on that ladder of either being like super oppressed or like being in the middle and oppressing others, but then like not fitting either category anyway. Yeah, so it's like, are you more autistic or ADHD? A visionary or a worker bee? Pick a lane or go insane. No time to grieve, you're just naive. Fall into the hierarchy, fight against reality. Pick a lane or we'll pick for you. Pick a lane or we'll ignore you. And like, it's like, if you're honest, it's so hard to get information, which like a lot of the people who are doing shitty stuff in the world, I think a lot of them would prefer not to if there were other ways to get access to information and support. When we create them, like this space, we dismantle the power of this. Well, if you want to be okay, you got to go beat up someone else.
No.
Which is, there's kind of like a dualism there. Like, you're safe because you're the one that hurts the person and takes away their safety. Like, it becomes aggressive and adversarial and dominating as a quick way to like try to still satisfy that as people get more and more detached from real like real knowledge, like real information, truthful information about what makes people healthy or not, and then they have to bully people into pretending they're healthy, which gets into the whole like gaslighting, scapegoating, like future faking, like all these things that we kind of recognize as like narcissistic or manipulative like tactics. um huh but it's so interesting to me because I think what's weird about being autistic is like we do get excluded a lot. There's other groups that get excluded a lot. Let me walk that back. But when you're autistic, even the group that's supposed to like share the weird hoarded resources absolutely don't want you around. Like I think because we ask too many questions, and I think because we don't like that nobody has a good reason to be around each other, like that bothers us a lot more because we don't because we don't see the social stuff very well, so we can't see why they're together. I have that problem a lot. I'm like, oh, is it because you just all talk the same, like you all copied each other's accent? I don't know why you're friends. Like, what do you do together? Okay, you go to the same general location and sound like the same person. That's weird.
Okay, I resonate with a lot of the like spaces that are supposed to be inclusive and beginner friendly are very based on hanging out and quote unquote vibing. And like in the context of hanging out or vibing, the priorities are to avoid conflict, to make sure everyone gets time to talk. There is no thing being built. And then, oh, you want to be a builder? Then go being stressful work environments, even in after work volunteering stuff.
Yeah.
Even in your hobbies, go compete all the time.
Right.
And there aren't many spaces for like, how do we intentionally share information inclusively beyond just hanging out in a place together the way neurotypicals socialize? Or, oh, you want to make art while you're doing? We can parallel play making art, but not talk about how we're doing it.
Yeah, right, because we're supposed to still be competitive on some level. That's what's so weird to me. And I don't, oh, it weirds me out so bad. Like, some of my ideas, I've had the thought in the back of my head, like, what if somebody tries to copy my idea and does it badly because they don't get it? Like, it wouldn't even be bad. You know what I mean? If someone copied my idea and they did it better and it worked, that'd be fire, because I'm pretty sure this is like an escape valve for the species not being in a nightmare. So I don't care if I don't get credit for it on that level. But also, if somebody wanted credit, they definitely can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if part of it is some kind of. I'm not like a big fan of like the human nature arguments in general. There's a lot of stuff that we would look at right now and be like, that's a horrible thing to do, and then, but 100 years ago, 20 years ago, like, oh, that's just normal. It's human nature. So I'm not a big human nature fan,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking, because as you guys are talking, I'm kind of like imagining what these spaces might look like for the few times I've kind of like been able to, like through work or something, like peek behind the veil and see like, man, you guys really do just have snack machines, or you really do have like ping pong tables. You can just go use it, right? Which I personally didn't have a problem. But I'm just thinking, but it also kind of got me thinking too, like school bullying, right? I haven't seen too much bullying in a workplace. It just wasn't like really the thing. But I did see bullying one time at work, and I was kind of surprised at my coworkers who I consider friends, like bullying this like kind of new guy who was kind of just helping out. And I was like, why are they like all just like picking on him all the time? And I'm having to constantly like, he didn't do what you're accusing him of. Like, I was working with him all day. You got in the room, and within like 5 minutes, you're accusing him of stuff that he's not doing, or disparaging him for no reason, or making assumptions of his like intelligence or something. It's like, I've been hanging out with him for the past 2 weeks, and it's like none of the things you guys are saying. And I'm kind of like shocked by it. And I even told my coworkers, I'm like, I'm genuinely shocked that you guys are picking on him. Like he's like, I thought better of you. I legitimately thought better of you, right? And that kind of like took them back a little bit. And it's like, I'm not even trying to hurt your feelings. If anything, I want to help him, but at the same time, I'm also just sharing my genuine thought. Like, okay, so that's as much workplace bullying as I've ever seen. But I've heard people talk about workplace bullying, and I'm like, that's amazing to me that adults will still do that.
Right.
But I bring up the human nature thing because I'm wondering, I'm like, is it some kind of weird like safety in numbers thing? Like, is it some kind of weird like that concept like if you join in with the bullies, you won't be bullied yourself, and
Right.
even if you are bullied, it won't be as much as the bullied are. Because what Tara said earlier, I'm gonna kind of paraphrase it. Or at least kind of what it got me thinking of was kind of like a lot of people, if they had something different going on, maybe they wouldn't be destroying everything. Maybe they wouldn't be doing this, doing that. And I kind of tend to agree with that because I think, like generally speaking, like really small kids, like I come from like a big family, like when does a kid start to hit other kids or bite other kids, for example, right? Did they have to see violence somewhere to do that? Is it a natural thing that like because we are animals, like one animal as an animal, does that kind of just naturally happen a little bit, but then it gets kind of refined as people basically teach each other how to do more refined versions of bullying. Like, so we're not physically hitting him now, but now what we're doing is making fun of him. Well, now we're not making fun of him to his face. We're making fun of him behind his back. Well, now we're not making fun of him behind his back. We're just excluding him from this thing, on and on and on.
Well, but can I add a quick thing to that? Wouldn't that potentially satisfy a culture that teaches doing as arriving too soon and too much? Like, as you get more sophisticated, you find more ways to signal that you've arrived and they haven't.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm wondering is like, I'm not an expert in our culture even, but I certainly wouldn't say that I'm like an expert in other cultures. But it is interesting when you hear like other cultures, like, oh, the people there would never do X behavior because that's like horrible. And it's like, oh, that's like daily here. But then there's a behavior here we wouldn't like, but then over there it's normal, and it's like, how could you do that? It's horrible, right? So it does seem like if you put somebody, they're going to be a product of their environment more so than any quote unquote natural tendency. So if, especially as Americans, we're seeing, folks doing as arriving behavior. Is it not just immediately? You know what I mean? Like your first memories are going to be one of or both of your parents going to work and talking about it with the other spouse, or maybe not talking about it, but having a bad day and that transfers into your day. Or depictions on media and TV of like, this is what a happy person looks like, their money, or this is what a happy person looks like, their notoriety. And well, how do you do that? Oh, you got to hustle.
Can I tell you something that I find kind of disturbing? So I'm like, how early can it be? And I was like, oh, what about like your first word? Don't fathers and mothers compete for it to be mama or dada?
Yeah, isn't it actually a little bit more frequent than it should be that one parent will be let down when the kid says the other parent's thing?
Yeah.
Hasn't there been there has to have been at least 100 marriages that got strained, at least, if not divorced, but strained because the child said, grandma instead of the mom or dad, and then the other parent is upset, like, oh well, my parent isn't here as much as the other parent, and then try to make it the other parent's fault, like, well, you don't like my parent, and it's like, no, they just don't come around to it. So it's like, and then again, it's like it's stemming from what? But then it kind of goes the other way too, where it's like, well, then again, is it only the kid saying the name that's making it a big problem, or do you have other problems that are unresolved, and now this is like a proxy war? So I think that's when we do start to get into the general statement, and then having to go into the particulars. I think both are necessary. But to your point, yeah, if you're infiltrated in a culture where it's a consistent and constant depiction of happiness is success, and success is these signifiers, well, then of course that's what people's main focus is going to be, because I don't know if most people want to walk around feeling kind of, kill at odds.
Well, it's interesting because I'm like, sometimes I analyze myself to try to understand how I turned out like this instead. My first word was shoe, and I pointed at it because I was on the floor all day long looking at shoes. And I thought that was pretty cool that I knew what it was and pointed at it. It was like, but like I think that's a better first word. Is like shoe is a better first word. Nobody like everyone was like that's cute. Nobody was like oh no, and cried because I didn't say mama or dada. I said shoe because I saw a lot of shoes, and I was curious what they were. I guess I don't know. Like I was a baby. I had almost no neurons doing shit. But like to that point, then I think about okay, so my brother got evaluated at 7. I was like 6, 5.5, or something like that, somewhere in that range. And I compared my results to his because it was like, age range. I was trying to figure out like, okay, do we match up? Because I wanted people to acknowledge me as smart. And I watched my parents relate my brother to Einstein. Like he had Einstein shirts. I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever he's doing, I have to at least measure up to that to be considered smart. And that wasn't helpful, but I still don't think I internalized it as like a rival goal, even though obviously I think the culture was informing that experience of it. But it was more like I saw that there was a threshold, and somehow my brother met that threshold of like an amount. Like I thought that intelligence was a quantity, not a place. So I needed to have that quantity or more, right? And I was like, well, how do I get that? I want more of the quantity of thing. And I think in our culture, people, well, that's what, okay, this is useful. I was learning about the neuroscience of greed, which by the way is very under-researched. But the guy who was giving the presentation on it, who's starting to do the research since like 2015, was saying that like in neuroscience, we know there's a difference between wanting and liking. So like greed is associated with wanting something, but you often don't actually like the thing. So when you get it, even though you wanted it, you don't feel any happier because you don't actually care about the thing. And then you can split that as like extrinsic motivation, intrinsic motivation. So like I think these are like fundamental concepts of how to be happy and okay, and that our brain is biased towards translating it to the wanting, doing as arriving model. And if you can just get away from that model a little bit, I think you're in a way better shape. Because I don't think, like, nobody tried to get me where I could do anything like this. That was not intentional. So then it makes me think it's probably not that hard. It's just there's so much stacked against you. There's so many reinforcements of, like, no, but you're competing to get what you want. Instead of here's something you really like, how can this thing you really like be what you spend time with? Hang on, I'm going to ponder this for a second. That's
it kind of reminds me of.
Go.
Huh?
Please go.
Oh, it kind of reminds me of, well, not even vaguely, but it reminds me of like the even before midlife crisis, really, but the guy with the nice car meme, where it's like some people, they have a really nice car, but then you ask like, but why do you like it? If they say it drives nice, that's positive towards the liking. If it's because but really that's usually what it comes down to. Very seldom is somebody like, oh, it has this size engine that does this, and it was modified from the version before. 10 years ago they added this gearbox this way, da 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 da, or because of the line of sight this da da da, and then they changed da da da. I don't think someone has to be an expert to like their car, but oftentimes when someone has like the expensive car but then they don't know about any of the components, that's kind of when I'm a little bit kind of like, it's BS, because I don't even consider myself like a capital C car guy, but I I do I mean, like when I have to like replace something, I usually do it. I've done some stuff that should have even like been outside of my experience, like nothing super complicated, don't get me wrong, like I've taken my car in to get work on, um but generally, like I like my car, but if you ask me why I like my car, it's not because of what it's communicating to other people, it's because the all-wheel drive, it's because the gas efficiency, it's because of its size relative to its nimbleness. It's because of the things I can use it for. That's why I like my car. But then someone else might like their car because of, well, they might not tell you, or they will, but I think a lot of times it really does seem like it's just because it's signifying to you what it's signifying to other people. It's signifying to that person what it must signify to other people. Like, I'm a person who's made it. I'm a person who's successful. I'm a person who's mature. I'm a person who's responsible with money. I'm a person who can get money. I'm a person.
I could hear you perfectly clear this whole time, Kyle. I couldn't hear Jane except for that like echo sounding
Oh,
yeah that sounded like it was coming in through your system.
Weird. Okay, I think it's
okay.
our internet. I think it's back.
Now I can
Yeah, it
hear
might
you
just
just
be my
fine,
side.
Jane.
But yeah, so because I think it's interesting how you discussed. Thank you for that information, Brother Tar. I think it's interesting how you, Jane, how you mentioned intelligence as a quantity, as opposed to, kind of how I translated my mind, as opposed to a position. So, like, oh, this person's intelligent, and how do we decide that, their ability to recognize, use, et cetera, this pattern to be able to explain it, or this person's smart at this activity because look how they do it. But then for some people, the smartness is like, well, I'm smarter than this person. And it's like, well, smarter at what? In everything, every single thing, or certain things? Like, a lot of times friends are kind of surprised to find that I'm not very well off at all financially. I kind of want to write a book called Good at Math, Bad with Money. Um, because they're like, but you're so smart. You're like really good at math, and you da, da, da. And it's like I don't know what to tell you. Like I can conceptualize the money thing. When I sit down to do the money thing, I can understand all these terms. Um, and oftentimes I can repeat them back in ways that I can say what it is better than the person who's using the concept, whatever interest rate or whatever. But then I can't engage with that thing on a personal level for a number of reasons. One, I don't even think to because I'm doing the things I like to do. But then when I do try to go sit down and do it, I just kind of feel weirded out by the whole thing. Like, I don't do stocks. I don't try to invest money, anything like that. Not because I'm trying to do a moral grandstand like I think some people might, even if they don't notice it. But it's just genuinely, it's like, maybe I can't wrap my mind around it, but I really do think that the biggest portion of it is like I can't focus on it. I can't build with it because it's just too many crazy things that I'm opposed to intellectually and morally and philosophically to be able to engage with it. So it's just kind of funny to me how that's not a constant theme, but it's a consistent theme where people are like, wait, you don't do, we would have thought you would be good with stocks. We would have thought you would do this, you would do that. Like, you're not good with money. And it's like, I wouldn't say I'm horrible with money, but no, I'm not good with money, but I'm good at math. So how do you square that? And then trying to make sure that I don't go too overboard and be like, therefore the whole thing is bad. Because look, I should be good at money because I'm good at math. But I shouldn't look at it that way either. But um, so when mentioning intelligence as a quantity rather than a position, I thought that was interesting. It kind of got me thinking about that, where it's like, oh yeah, this person's smart, but kind of rarely do we say like smart with what and how and even why, and how did that person develop that intelligence? Did they come out swinging and they were that smart? Did it develop over time? Is it probably a combination of both? um it's like, yeah, someone's good at something, you call them Einstein about it, but it's like, but do we know if Einstein was good at other things? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, I resonate a lot with a lot of that. Yeah, similar story with people thinking I was going to be more than okay financially because I'm quote unquote so smart, and then like getting less support than most people, both in school and at jobs, and not even being told that I'm held support or why, because people are just assuming I'm smart, not asking me how I learned anything. Like that was a really good point. And assuming if I'm able to do one thing once faster than someone else, then I must be smarter than them across the board. And then add on that like another where I hit my wall of like not being able to succeed in that system anymore. Like some was just the increased expectations of like increased complexity of stuff to deal with in general. But a big
Mhm.
piece of that complexity was being told do this thing and it looks simple, but then I dig into it, something's confusing to my ADHD brain. I dig a tiny bit deeper and surface a bunch of ethical issues.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I've been tasked with doing A, B, and C. But then when I go to do that, I discover there's also D through F,
Mm-hmm.
but I still have the deadline. And now I'm pulling all-nighters to try to solve it single-handedly. As Jane was saying, well, that's cool. Can you solve that while still meeting the deadline, while still working in the system? And then serve it on a silver platter. Convince them it's a thing. Convince them that my solution that I worked overtime without any extra pay and I'm not going to get the next day off for is even worth putting in.
Yeah. Well, because okay, here's the paradox. So I have people who say that I'm smart, right? And it'll come up at times where I don't fully expect it to, because I never know when people are gonna make that determination, to be honest. But what happens is people be like, "You're so smart." I'm like, "Okay, cool. So you want me to do stuff for you, but what if you're not as smart as me and you don't know what can be done because I'm too smart relative to how you are thinking about this? So then why would I work with you if you think I'm really smart? Doesn't that mean that it's possible that you're not smart enough to know how to do anything that I'm doing?" Like it's kind of a weird
Oh my
compliment.
gosh.
It's also them saying that like they're smart enough to know where smart is, and I'm like, are you though? Like what? I mean, like maybe yes, but like but which is fine if it wasn't doing as arriving. But if it's a little bit of like, if there's enough doing as arriving psychology, which there tends to be, like, just probabilistically speaking, because there's just so much of it, like there's a possibility they already got the reward of saying like, I can tell you're smart, and then that was all it was. It wasn't like you should be in charge of things. It was like, I should still be very important, but now I get to stay important because I know where the important people are. And I'm like, this doesn't really make any sense.
I think also too, I think when someone is recognizing someone as intelligent or capable, etc., and then I think we also run into the complexity of that statement, is that the statement is never uttered in a vacuum. It's always going to be, there's the context is going to be important, the person saying it, the environment, the reason why, their own intention, their own even their own relationship to that. Like
Yeah.
my dad, when he introduces me to people that he knows, right, which isn't very often in my life. My dad's not like necessarily like a social butterfly guy, but he meets people and da, da, da. But whenever he introduces me, he always tells the person within the first few sentences of introducing me, like, "Oh, he's smart. He's way smarter than me,"
Mm-hmm.
and da 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 da. But the context with that is he genuinely believes I'm smart and genuinely assumes I'm smart and genuinely sees me as someone who's capable of, figuring out a problem or something like that, right?
Right.
Or being able to offer, being able to notice something that an intelligent person would notice and to be able to figure out and then explain, like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, you're right. We have to do it that way because of that. You're right. That's smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that never rubs me the wrong way, because it's like, who doesn't want their parent to, this is my child, da 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 da. This person's smarter than I am. He's smart.
Absolutely.
Right? Who doesn't want that?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think, and maybe this is because I'm a male, but I've never, it's never, and I'm also not saying that you're saying it was patronizing either. I'm just getting ahead of, because I'm trying to work out all the different reasons. So
I see. Yeah.
I don't think that I've ever been patronized when someone told me that I was smart. Because not only, well, it's a little complicated too, because not only am I a male, but I'm also visibly part Asian. And I do sometimes wonder if that's a part of it, because it's like everyone knows that Asians are smart. You know what I mean? Everybody knows that.
Yeah. That stereotype.
So I think maybe that's like part of like the cultural assumption is like, oh, it's an Asian guy is here.
Mm-hmm.
Asians are smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's also some assumption with that too. Like, not only is this person smart with the number thing that we have to do in this room. Like, just give all the math to him, right? Like, I kind of noticed that sometimes. Like, it's like, why is that person assuming I'm the numbers guy? Like, I'm showing up, I'm not wearing a suit and tie. I don't have a calculator on a lanyard on my neck, you know? But so, because what I'm saying all this, because I'm like, how much of it is our own self reading into it beyond what the person meant? How much of it is, no, there really was a weird thing about that statement? How much of it really is like, for sometimes is it like a concession, like a biscuit, like, here, dog, here's a treat, like, here's your treat for the day, you got a compliment, you're smart, right? But don't forget who's in charge. Like, that can happen to people too sometimes, where it's like, you might be smarter than the boss, but the boss is the boss. You might be smarter than so and so, but so and so owns the resources. It's like if you're doing a service for somebody, it's like, yeah, you're probably smarter at the thing you're doing than the person paying you to do it, but they're the one paying you to do it. The customer's always right. So that kind of thing, you know what I mean? Where it's like in a job dynamic, when you really think about it, like, your boss, your supervisor, like, in a way, like, relationship wise, like, they are the customer, because they are the ones in control of, they're the one in control of your fate at that institution in general.
Right. Well, that gets into, can I stop here, or is it, you want to keep going? I'll wait.
No, go for it.
Okay. So that then says to me, like, I think I've mentioned this before, there's like at least two definitions of importance, and that I understood important to mean like meaningful and capable of giving me more meaning. Like, the thing that has a lot of meaning and will make me better at understanding meaning is the most important thing, because it's the most like meaning dense. Okay. So, but some people mean important as in like hierarchy, doing as arriving, right? Like, it will either get me to my doing as arriving goal, or this person is more powerful in a doing as arriving sense. Like, they can give me more trophies, they can let me run more competitions, they're competitive in some way. So if somebody's saying you're smart, like, what do they mean? Maybe there's like two kinds of smart that we're referring to, at least, where one of them is like, are you like, what's the word, cunning, kind of, about the social stuff, and able to do that, which we could call manipulative, by the way, potentially, depending on how people do it. But also there's like smart as in, are you saying the thing that's like actually important for us to be doing? So I think when people call me smart, they're like, oh yeah, we probably should be thinking about what she's talking about. Huh. And that can be bad. Like, I think we're at a point where if somebody are smart in that sense, they probably are going to make a lot of people feel kind of uncomfortable. And if at the same time they're supposed to be in a lower position automatically in the doing as arriving thing, like, if you're considered like the kick me in the group, then you're not supposed to know what everybody's doing. You're supposed to be the outsider who doesn't get it. So if you've potentially revealed that the doing as arriving system has broken what the whole important thing was supposed to be about, like what are we supposed to do? Like, hey, what's going on? Oh, that's what's going on? I guess we should do this. And nobody knows what's going on because they've been doing as arriving so hard. The intelligent person is actually like an existential threat. So I almost wonder if people also like tell you you're smart because it is like a way of hitting the hierarchy button and kind of like breaking the cognitive dissonance of like, I wasn't talking about the smart thing until they got here. Wait a second. What does that mean about what we're all doing?
And yeah, and to clarify what I'm saying earlier, that's kind of what I'm wondering, where it's like the context of when someone says that, what it means and why. I think it can certainly go into that territory where sometimes I do think there's a non-zero number of people, I don't know what the percentage would be, but who do feel they kind of feel put upon when somebody's kind of like genuinely visibly intelligent, and they might have their own difficulties surrounding that, like intelligence as just in general, or they might have issues in their own day-to-day sense of self-worth and ability that this has kind of touched on that sore spot. So I think sometimes the sore spot of a given person is also going to color the reasons why they might feel animosity towards somebody either displaying some characteristic about themselves or just their own visible attribute, like their skin color or their gender or something. It's like that, like, have they done the study recently or not about like the whole if a woman talks like not even 50% as a man, but the man will like almost always report that she spoke more than him, or like if a room is 30 something percent is women, then men think that the majority of the room was women, stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Was that all? What are those? Are those all real?
Yeah, those are. I don't know how recent they are, but yes, those are. Yeah, those are real.
Yeah, because it's like if it was in the 70s versus now, like that's 50 years ago, so we got to redo it.
I don't think it's. I think it's in the 2000s up forward. I don't think it's older than that. Maybe it's like 2015, something like that.
Oh man, I was gonna say the 80s at the earliest, because the 80s was still kind of dumpy like that.
No, those are more recent.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well, but that's
just again like.
Go ahead. Sorry, you finish your thought.
But like what you're saying, like when people say that you're smart, to you specifically, and how you're contextualizing it, it's just kind of got me wondering, like, yeah, what a person's relationship to intelligence is in general, and / or what a person's relationship to other factors in their life that intelligence is touching upon. It's kind of like a guy gets jealous at this other guy because he has a nice car, but he's never seen that guy before. He might not have ever even seen that model of car before, but it looks like other things. And that guy is a guy who's like other guys. So he was actually never mad at that specific other person before, but then he sees him, and then that ruins his next 15 minutes in his head. So it is based on previous experience, but why are you mad at him about the car? Because someone might be genuinely mad at somebody with a big, like, the Ford F-150 Raptor. The Ford F-150 is a pickup truck. You know, you've seen them a million times if you live in America. The Raptor was like the souped up, turbocharged, bells and whistles version that it's been around for now at least a decade. I remember when they're first coming out. Now they're probably through the roof, but when they first came out, they were like $60,000 to $70,000, and at that time that was way too much for a truck. Now $60,000 is how much a regular F-150 goes for last time we were looking at them. But back then, that's like, what? F-150 is supposed to be like $35,000, $40,000. It's like an affordable utility vehicle. These guys suck, right? Someone could be genuinely mad at the F-150 Raptor owner because it's a gas guzzler. It's got a huge engine. It's getting like 10 miles to the gallon, which is preposterous. So that kind of seems like that's a little bit warranted, right? It's like, yeah, you're part of the problem. But then someone else might get mad at the F-150 owner or the Raptor owner, not even thinking about the gas, but just like, oh, who does he think he is? He's got, we've all seen it, we've all heard it before, like, small penis energy, where it's like we're assuming that guy's compensating. We call it the compensator, right? We say that about a lot of things that men have. When men have something that's too big for its own function, we kind of culturally say that he's compensating for something. But yeah, what is that guy compensating for? Because we're going straight for the genitalia. We don't know that. Why are we assuming that? So now we're becoming part of the problem because we're making our educated guess about him, and we're assuming he's making his educated guess about us. So it kind of gets complicated with that. But that type of like trying to reason out or intuitively kind of know what a person is saying whatever for, I think could be a little complicated. But when we notice trends, that kind of changes the relationship to the complication too, because then you can kind of make it a definitive statement. Like if you're walking down the street and someone's following you, I don't think you should, well, I don't know what's in his head. He might just be going with me. He might be going to the next bus stop with you, or he might be following you to rob you. You don't know, right? But yeah, with the smart thing, it just I'll stop there, but that's kind of just what it gets me thinking about.
Would you like to hear a funny song idea I had about guys who use the small dick excuse to be a jerk?
Sure.
Go for it.
Let me see if I can remember this. You've been acting like a jerk because you're insecure. You treat me like your therapist and then you want more. Well, I got news for you. You're barking up the wrong chick. If I leave you, it won't be because the size of your dick. La 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 la. Throw your tantrums all you want, I won't fall for your trick. I don't want to hear no more about the size of your dick.
Great.
I've heard that song
Excellent.
before.
Right, well, I need the link then. Who is my songwriting twin? We need to collab.
Yes.
Wait, you said you wrote that?
Yeah. Oh, I may have
Oh,
shared
wait.
it in Party. I don't think I did.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that channel has been popping lately. It's so much fun.
Yay.
I've met so many great people through the server. And it's been such a like beginner friendly, like neuro inclusive intro to the arts that I didn't have in my early 20s. And then like I just felt like I don't know how to communicate in this subculture. And this has been the like hand holding that I need. So I really appreciate
Good.
that.
I'm glad.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is.
That's good.
Let me check our schedule. Let's see here. Dun, dun, dun. Today's focus, special interest building, project corners. Oh, I wanted to talk about, do I want to do that? Okay, I feel like we did everything in the beginning. New things welcoming fresh tools, old things honoring treasures and memories, all things surveying gently without judgment. Do things small, joyful actions we can take today. Special interest power-ups, building project corners. I'm starting to try to work on that with my AI. Like, what are ways to change the space to make it like special interest friendly that can be practiced? So I was like, what if you made each corner about something? I don't know. I'm kind of noodling with that one. Creating memory gardens. So like, oh, that got into some complicated terminology. And then starting modular workstations. Like, okay, so the project corner thing is like, maybe we need like a place that is an anchor for several kinds of activities, and then you can have a modular like plugin for it. So I'm trying to ponder about that. That's just more physical space, but that's a little bit off from the learning thing. Let's see. What was the other thing? Hang on, let me look through my AI thing. 'Cause there's I didn't do this part on the agenda. Let me see if I can find it.
That's the feather I was talking about. Look at that.
That's a nice feather, Kyle.
Chunker, huh?
Yeah. Let's see here. What is it? Oh, right. That's what it was. The old things, like, there's a metaphor that I thought was interesting that, like, if your objects are the old things, like they're clutter or whatever, you can think of them as like seeds for a future garden. So maybe you've kept the seeds for a long time and they haven't had the right place to be planted. And that could be like the new thing. Like, is it time to plant this? So that was something that was kind of interesting. And that's why we had like the memory garden. That's a little undercooked, but that might eventually work. I really, man, if I could just get this concept to work in people's life like on a daily basis, it would be so great. I'm still figuring it out though.
I'm very excited to keep jamming on this with you. Yeah, I've been like trying to break down similar things myself of like, where are we getting stuck with knowledge sharing and learning and getting things done? So yeah, like I want to organize my thoughts better, and then I'd love to share them here at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Like, here, I'll read this one breakdown. And so, like, I don't like putting things in step, but they said step 2, old things. Honor the old items connected to your passions. Look for objects that are part of your story, even if dusty or jumbled. These aren't clutter, they're seeds of who you are. Group or display meaningful items where they can inspire, not guilt. Start a question: which objects make you feel proud, happy, or inspired when you see them? Which old materials would you love to revisit or finish someday? And then this was interesting. Gently survey, step 3, all things. Gently survey the space to understand what's active, what's dormant, and what no longer fits. No pressure to get rid of anything immediately. Sort into building blocks, or it could be like seeds, right? Memory anchors. I feel like those are things that can trigger even more episodic memories. We should so start to care about episodic memory, by the way. It's like, that's my one like takeaway right now. Hibernators and farewells. I'm like, hibernators, that's very interesting. So, like, if we think of things as having potential for growth, if it's hibernating, it's just going to like pause until its next phase of whatever its life is. And that's interesting because then it's like it cares about the environment being ready for it. And that's sort of my point with like time being complexity. And as time goes forward, complexity of the things you've already engaged with becomes more sophisticated and connected. Like it connects more. It all, you know what I mean? So it's like, so we need. Oh, this is so hard because it feels like I'm trying to rewire a brain that didn't get a chance to be taught in an environment that got this. But I think that would work for people. We just kind of have like the wrong metaphors for so long. That dislodging the unhelpful ones that have kept us stuck is a little bit of a like very it's an ordeal. Oh, we can have some Sims. We should do Sims first. I need to actually clear out my memory on my computer because I can't update the game until I do, but I should do a Sims game soon. That would be tight. Oh, it has been way too long. We will do a Sims. And this is why I want to keep reading. I have been, but I need to keep reading about oh, actually this is a segue into something I wanted to say. I'm going to keep reading books about like the semiotics and like neurolinguistic stuff so I can try to talk people into doing as building and myself and talk us out of doing as arriving and all the reinforcements of doing as arriving that are like out of hand. But the other thing is getting back to like being called smart and all that. So because of my job that I have giving me the title of professor, and no one's going to look too deep into that. And I already have like an opportunity to extra legitimize it through like City College. It's just there's just some potential off ramps to even more title-y type like stability. If I have the title, they'll let me do stuff is what I've realized. Like because we have this system of like, oh, but the title lets you do things. That's the only indicator people really have to check if somebody like knows what is going on and how things should be discussed. So they're picking really dumb leaders. Like I won't bring him up again, but RFK Jr. Like he's got a title he should absolutely not have. Like it makes no sense. He doesn't know what he's so incredibly bad at knowing what he's talking about that he said the same thing for 10 years with no update. And it was ridiculous back then, and it's been 10 years of progress on understanding autism. So it's like, wow, this is one of the worst examples of incompetency I've ever seen in my entire life. And that bothers me for personal reasons. So I feel like, I'm like, is this the bad place? Anyways, so point with that is like, for the time being, maybe we need to like hijack some titles while this like I feel like the Titanic is going down, but I might as well get like the chef's badge while it's going. You know what I mean? Like they'll still treat me like I'm the chef even though this whole system is bullshit. But then they might listen to me when I say get in the life fucking raft, you know, like jump off the ship, please.
That's awesome. I'd love to learn more about this new job, or even like general place in that other stream. I can go looking for it. Yeah, I don't want to watch the whole other stream though. But also, yeah, if you did want to like catch up one-on-one sometime, or whatever you want to call it, talk about. Yeah, I know the word catch up can be like ambiguous too, but yeah, if you want to chat more about stuff that's been going on in our lives one-on-one sometime, we can do that too.
I would like to do that. That'd be great.
Cool. Yeah. Also, would you prefer if I brought stuff like that up not on the stream? Yeah, I figured like after I did it.
I'm getting cut off by my position where I am. I think it's fine as long as you don't mind. Like I'm pretty open in this space, so you know, whatever makes sense is fine.
Cool. Yeah, I can like. Do you have a preference for like no, never mind. Yeah, I'll like DM you or something.
Okay. Yeah. And phone is okay too. Like either one. I'm trying to get a little bit yeah, I'm trying to get a little bit better about replying, but I think as I'm finally getting to a brand new routine, I'll have another chance to swing at getting on top of communication, which I'm not the best at.
Yeah. No rush. Also, like, if you'd prefer for me to reach out like in 2 weeks or something, like I can also hold off on that.
Oh,
like would that be
maybe let me look at my schedule. get a hold of me sometime this week. You don't have to wait 2 weeks, but like, yeah, give me a couple days and then check in with me. I think I'll be fine. Tomorrow, I know I
Got
need
it.
to try to communicate with a bunch of people, but then I should be good after that.
Gotcha. Also, another reason I caught myself about the topic of talking about DMs and private chats on the stream is because so something came up. There was a buddy of mine hosting not an autism group specifically, but an autistic special interest group.
Oh,
And I like not special interest in like the autistic content, common interest. Yeah, my language system mixes things up sometimes. And her group was having issues with stalkers. Then
oh
I
no.
mentioned that to Matthew. Yeah, I don't need to mention who's who here. A person named Matthew in my life who mentioned that being a common occurrence with people in the neurodiversity space sometimes. And I've also just heard stuff like that from like, especially as you're like growing your TikTok following and becoming more known in the world. I think it'd be good to set some kind of ground rules around that kind of stuff. And I don't want people getting an impression like, oh, if Tara can blah 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 with Jane,
Right.
maybe people in a day can, and then you don't get back to them. And unlike me being okay if you don't reply to a message because life happens, like, why didn't Jane reply to me?
Yeah.
Jane's a bitch. Like, you know?
Yep. That's very interesting. Yeah, I wonder how that will go. I wonder. Yeah, I think that's interesting. So far, I thankfully haven't grown in a way that made that like hit me in my face before I had a chance to think about it. But yeah, I can kind of see from outside that happening to people.
By the way, that neurodivergent writers community, we have like they have had some conversations about moderation, and like sometimes like they've come up in like conversations that I've been in as well, like about like why they made certain decisions. So they do seem like kind of knowledgeable on that front. Also happy to connect. Yeah, tell you who, if you don't remember already, I was referring to about like the just doing this kind of work, some shit that happens in the world. Yeah, I can share like generally who I know who seems knowledgeable about different aspects of that.
Awesome.
With when we chat.
Yeah, that would be great. Cause yeah, it's weird. I'm kind of, I don't know how much. How do I start this over? I don't know how much attention I'm gonna get from who. I probably will end up getting attention from somebody for some reason. Like I feel like at some point I'll be a thing. I guess maybe not, but I'm kind of glad it hasn't happened. Like I'm glad I've never gone viral. I'm like that seems for the best actually in hindsight.
Yeah.
Much as I thought that was a good thing, I'm like maybe it's not. So at least I can try to be prepared. And maybe I never do and I do everything kind of like low key, but it's boy is it weird. I don't get it all.
Can I share something? Okay, so I love the content in your Bill TikTok video. And
Thank
I
you.
think that would be great, like for, you know, general concepts for your book idea that you shared.
Yep.
That said, the framing it as a bill and communicating about it in a way that sounds more like it's a done deal versus the way you speak here, it did lead me. Okay, I have had conversations so far with 3 people trying to interpret what might this mean, what might be going on behind it. It was kind of are these ideas going to be fleshed out more? It comes off kind of confusing. And like those conversations, the spectrum was like one of them was like, I initiated it. Another one was like, initiated it, and the other one was kind of like me getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And like including like two of the people were like viewers who are not in this Discord. So just wanted to share that that is kind of coming off kind of ambiguously in that way. And I do feel like it's been clarified since, like on
Yeah.
this stream and the one before.
Right.
Just wanted to like put that out there.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe I'll talk more about why I did it and what I think it does. Interesting. Yeah, because I'm starting to look at organizations that already exist because, well, especially because of the misinformation. Am I getting cut out, by the way? Is my thing being weird?
I'm hearing you.
Okay, good. Okay, just checking. Green Mads also asked, oh, good question here. Would you like to grow this space or gatekeep to vetted cool folks? So, grow, yes, but only if it's useful to people. So the vetting is like, do you think they will like to be here because we are doing things they would like, and therefore they would like being around these people. Like, we're very like specific project focused space. So if people are cool with that and the project is a little bit abstract, but it's basically trying to figure out like how autistic brains and other brains would work better by modifying the environment and having a better model of human cognition kind of more globally. So we're kind of play testing a model of human cognition that I'm coming up with, sort of, but also other people are contributing to and have been contributing to for years. So it's a little bit like of a team project that was kind of my idea. I don't know how to even take credit for that. It doesn't make sense. But yeah, so if people like that, it's a little bit hard to explain it, but also that's why I have like the inner ring for the Discord, to try to teach or at least connect people to the right attitude. And then the thing I was going to say about like getting back to the ATIA thing, I don't think people even dreamed of something like that. I think we've limited our imagination, and that's just not going to work because the things that we need will be impossible to realize unless we start talking about it more directly. So that was kind of like an attempt to talk about it directly, and I could definitely clarify that like this could be talked about other ways, but it's like a concrete thing that needs to be fleshed out quickly. So that was like an attempt to flesh it out as quick as possible, without getting into the specifics, but just being like, here's an incomplete paradigm shift. And it's weird because I put it out before we had RFK present like the dumbest paradigm. That's totally wrong. But that's kind of been our status quo, is like really dumb paradigms or ill-defined paradigms.
I really appreciate you clarifying all that. And I will say for like myself, and also I picked up some vibes like this from these conversations I've had discussing that video with people. So like usually like in the streams the kind of mindset that I automatically end up in, like sometimes not like what some of the first couple times I joined, I was still like trying to make sense of what is this space, because it was my first like stream Discord, my only like stream one, but even like discussion Discord that's not just like a mastermind. So it was like new for me. But like more recently, when I'm in like these spaces, I'm usually in this mindset of like, we're just sharing about our experiences. You like share like paradigms that you've come up with, and we like discuss them and kind of like battle test them and add to them. And like that framing of the bill put me in the kind of mindset that I get it. Now, I recognize at the same time, like, this is still Jane. And like, try to put myself in her shoes and think about what might be happening. But the first like emotional reaction of my brain was like to get into this mindset that I get into when I'm working with tech bros who don't know how much they don't know and are putting things out there in this very it's done kind of format, and then me having to come in and poke the holes but be graceful about it, not to hurt their feelings, etc. And I understand the need for it to be fleshed out quickly, and like I think it now this is just a suggestion, like not a expectation or anything, but like I know that I appreciate when people are like, okay, we need to get a rough draft out fast. Here it is, and we're going to keep working on it. We're not done with this project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's how I treated it. Like, I mean, maybe people aren't used to how I think. Yeah, I know. Nope. I was just trying to make it so like, well, if we started writing bills and I used my model, what would it turn out like at this point? Because my model is still being built too. Like the whole thing is, yeah, it's a work in, I don't know, like it's not just a work in progress. Like I'm experimenting with it. You know what I mean? So like I get feedback about like how accurate my current system probably is. Like I don't know. So, well, okay. Right. So yeah, it was more like I don't think anyone's ever thought of that before. Like, or at least I don't think so. Maybe. I mean, maybe. Glad. Yeah. So if it's like, hey, what if you started having thoughts like this? It could even just be that could be the utility of it. I think we're so locked into not imagining a real alternative that starts with like totally different premises that we're probably holding ourselves back from even attempting it. So mine was just like, well, what can my AI is pretty well trained. It came up because, well, I can give you some background. There's another TikTok creator, and she wrote a bill. I think hers was on like universal childcare with her AI. And she was explaining how to do it. And she's like, if other people want to write bills, you can send it to me. I was like, cool. So I sent her it, and I was like, oh, maybe I should also just read this. So I sent it because she was trying that project of having people write all kinds of bills. She's like, why don't we write our own bills since our representatives are crazy? Cuckoo Banoo. Yeah, so her, yeah, that was her project, and I don't know her name offhand. I think it's, oh gosh, she's a funny name. It's like, why is America so fucking stupid? I think it's something like that.
Got it.
Yeah, so I was just following her lead. And then once it was done, I was like, well, let's just share it because, yeah, like I think that was pretty much as far as I went with that. Is like, might as well.
Okay. I appreciate all of that context, and like I think like going forward, that kind of context up front in a video could be, or even in could be great.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering, I was like, okay, cognitively, I've been kind of with you this whole time. Emotionally, it was kind of a journey just in terms of like with Node, the old stuff that got pulled up for me to process. So one thing was like having other experiences with organizations and people. So one thing was like, is this server becoming mostly politics? Are we done with cognifactoring? And like I even got inspired, like I started writing up my own stuff partially because like, well, I want to do this whether or not it's going to happen here. So how would I communicate it? And now like I can show what I come up with here. And so that was one thought. And now like I'm going to have a chat with a member of this group tomorrow about how our cognifactoring and all the stuff we love is not going away. Yay. So that was one thing. Another thing that came up emotionally for me was just ways that I've been asked to support projects in the past. A lot of times it's share this thing, maximize reach, or give feedback on a very, very shallow level, as opposed to what we're doing here. And
Right.
I'm like, does what we're doing here apply to that TikTok as well, or does it fall into those more conventional TikTok rules?
Oh.
How much Jane playing the doing as arriving game to get a voice?
Oh. No, I want people to interact the way I've been teaching if they can, because yeah, no, so cognitive factoring, like if I don't reintroduce the term, it doesn't mean that it stopped happening. It's more
Right,
like
right.
I may be applying it in a way that's less explicitly stated, but the whole
Mhm.
purpose of it is to make like a scaffolding that more accurately describes our brains working in a
Mm,
mode that supports doing is building.
yeah.
So the cognitive factoring itself, it's called that because planning is reinforcing doing as arriving, and I just needed more ways to separate that, and I want to keep
Mm,
working on that too. So the terms are there so that the activities don't default back to doing as arriving. So if somebody like thinks I'm
mm,
doing as arriving, I really don't ever want to at this point. Like our society
mm,
like almost pushes you around it at this stage of
mhm.
it. Like you don't even have to do as arrive, they'll shove you somewhere. So it's very odd. So I assume I don't know. I don't know how to handle that. I want It's like the more well, it's okay. That makes me think about the attitudes are caught not taught thing again, where like if
Mm.
people hear me enough times in a row, I think they'll get it, but I'm not sure how to do that in other formats very well. Like I can do it here,
Right.
and I'm not even
Mhm,
100% sure why I can do it here. Like I don't know what skills I'm
mhm,
combining to have that result. I'm glad it works. That's good.
mhm,
And it clearly like made the Discord relatively coherent because you guys basically get it. But I don't know how to
mhm,
make people get it off of like TikToks, or I don't know yet how to do that.
mhm.
Or I hope it's possible.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. Off the top of my head, I feel like in any okay, if I now I don't have your brain, so I can't like guarantee that this would work, but like
Hmm.
if I'm just imagining myself in your shoes, going from doing these streams to like making TikToks. Okay, different audience, they haven't gone through the inner ring, they haven't heard past streams. Maybe they just see one TikTok of yours because that's the whole way the algorithm works. Okay,
Right.
like what information would be crucial to know? I think a signaling that this is like a work in progress idea, and all like that this is something that you're exploring rather than claiming you're like the authority on it. If you only want to attract people with that mindset, I think putting that right up front would lead the doing as arriving people to keep scrolling.
Hmm.
I didn't know if that's what you want or if you wanted more views and shares and all that to get boosted in the algorithm. But if that is what you want, um putting that like, starting maybe like first sentence like here's what we're going to talk about. Second sentence, by the way, this is an idea that I'm still putting together collaboratively. Learn more by clicking on this link in my TikTok bio if you'd like. Um,
Hmm.
and then get into it would potentially solve for a lot of that.
I could also upload the banana reading of uh the inner ring. Like if people maybe that's I mean maybe there's a better way to read it, but like honestly if they understand, oh, she's going to be a banana, I think they'll be fine. If they don't understand, I don't know, maybe that's too hard. Maybe that bar's too high for people cuz it's kind of absurd, but maybe not.
People
Anyway.
might still come across a single TikTok of yours without having done that because there's not a flow. There's not a you need to watch this before you can watch any
Right.
other of TikToks.
Well, that's
Which,
what I wonder if I could always put, well, this may not work, but what if I put it in the comment section every time? Like, hey, you're not going to understand me until you watch this. And or I could even say it as an intro.
with comments, I would wonder like if a bunch of other people comment on it, like on there was one TikTok that I think had like, was it like 25,000 views or something like that? And like 100 comments. Like, I don't know how high your comments would be. I don't know how that algorithm works. I could ask my friend who works at TikTok about that.
I don't get it either. I mean, like if I don't even know how easy it is to explain to people. It's very weird. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, so yeah, I mean, you're asking like what I would want. I don't know. Like I'm not sure what's a good idea and what's not at this point because
Mhm.
I don't fit in and I'm not going to. Like that's the goal is not to fit in because that will defeat the whole purpose of what I am and why I'm doing
Mhm.
anything. I'd rather teach. I'd rather somehow get people behaving in a different mode and interacting with me and what I'm doing and the people here in a different mode. And I can get people there by talking to them, which is really interesting. I don't and
Mhm.
again, I'm not 100% sure how I'm not sure how I'm doing that. What am I even saying? Like I could guess,
Mhm.
but I might be way off. I'm not sure why I'm able to do that. So
I
then
would
to
love to talk about
yeah,
that
yeah.
sometime.
No, yeah.
Uh,
I'm not sure what's going on.
Hmm. Because yeah, like something that has come up in several conversations that I've had in other spaces has been how to get people into a mindset to talk about deeper needs and nuances and like our processes beyond I can't socialize. And
Right.
I've had success in some spaces and not others.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm feeling so called to document what has worked. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking through myself, like formats. I think I'd like to start with written, but like, do I want to start with a Substack or a Notion? Like things like that. And right now I have like the note cards with sticky notes on them, and that's like it.
Yeah.
But would love to have, I feel like that could potentially be an HCAT sometime. I can put it in the suggestion channel.
Sure.
Okay.
That'd
My
be cool.
friend.
Yeah, I'd be curious to do that, especially like yeah, I'm entering an interesting transition where I'm going to be able to work with like a lot of people in ways that would be helpful for me to test out and understand what I am doing. Like diversify my experiments kind of which is good and while being a little more like financially and socially secure because that's always a
Yeah.
stressful part. Like I'm kind of off in the middle of nowhere a lot, not totally in the middle. Like there's I have a husband, I have friends, I have like career
Mhm.
stuff, but a
I
lot of
hear ya.
times yeah I'm kind of like way the fuck out there more than people may realize, and then I'm like, oh, I don't have any money, uh-oh. Like that's bad. It's a weird realization. Money's weird. Anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's also
New
hard.
year. Yeah, I just put that suggestion in, and yeah, absolutely. Like, we don't get to have many conversations about this stuff
Yeah.
because a lot of neurodivergent people don't have their basic needs met.
Yes.
And
Yes.
but then when we do get them met a little bit, we run into challenges with this stuff.
Mhm.
So it's hard to have those, it's hard to stay in whatever situations we're meeting our basic needs
Yep.
because of this other stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just so grateful for this space to talk about this and that I like fell into this space before I gave up on building because
Mhm.
I feel very pushed out of building spaces because they're mostly not accessible at all. I've been questioning, am I just built to be a travel blogger instead? You know, which a lot of
Right.
ADHDers fall into that kind of, am I meant to be an explorer? Yeah, of course, I can't remember more than 3 things at once. Of course, I'm not built to build. And yet, a world that's accessible needs people like me to build.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. because the way that you move about in the world, it should always be both, right? Like we have to move about, and like if people have accessibility problems where they can't move around, that also needs to be addressed. But the whole point of it is so that you can spend time with something that your brain can puzzle with, and the way that you intake it is different than how other members of the species intake it. And then when you process it and bring it back to the species, we now have a richer understanding of the world that we share. So like it sounds kind of utopian, but it's like how our species has gotten to do anything worthwhile, and also some stupid things, because we can get dissociated from reality and kind of like, yeah, we can start, instead of describing reality, we describe what the king told us to say about his new clothes that isn't really there. Yeah. So I mean, we are kind of familiar with the problem now, right? And so when your brain helps you to be more busy and moving around, that is also a kind of perspective taking, right? So what you do see and perceive is still a different pattern than the other humans. So therefore, you will build, but only if we support you with getting those insights processed. Like you have to process them the way your brain does. And that's what another failure that we have, that I think we're getting more acquainted with intimately, all of us, because we're like, I'm not doing good work. Why am I not doing good work? This is weird. Because there's so,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like there's so much pressure on us to do good work. So saying that
Yeah.
we don't want to is ringing very hollow at this point.
Yeah. Yes. Being told to do good work, but why isn't it happening?
Right.
That pinpoints, yeah, the angst of my 20s very well.
Yeah, same, likewise. So, but we're having this realization collectively, and I think so let me think about this. Your experience of building is not supposed to be the same as mine. Like that would defeat the whole purpose. Like I am a more stationary kind of builder. I am not the only kind of builder. And I'm not a totally stationary kind of builder, because I ended up liking stuff about dance. So like my body literally has to move to do it right. But even that I do kind of weird, because I have some sort of like, yeah, like my grid cells, something's really funky about them. So even that, it's a different exploration of traveling. Um, and if we, gosh, like the shift that we really need is to see our society as like a bunch of people who will struggle to learn something, and because of how they struggle, you will understand what the thing is. If you don't know how to teach it to everybody that could possibly learn it, you don't really understand it, is what I'm arguing.
Yes. I love that. I'm
Yay.
writing that down.
Yay. But that's, I mean, that kind of gets back to like trying to explain that project to people on TikTok is a little funky, because I'm like, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the whole TikTok format is tough. Yeah, maybe like you said, like using the inner ring, like you could have like a master TikTok explaining the project, and then you could make a bunch of other TikToks, and then you could say, if you like what you're hearing here, learn about how we're working on this in a project in this other TikTok.
Right.
And then if they like that TikTok, they can learn about the Twitch stream and this Discord and stuff.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder if I should also, they have a STEM side of TikTok, so like it's its own tab. Maybe I should spend a little bit of time seeing how the STEM communicators are talking, because they're obviously doing educational content. So maybe if I do a little bit of looking over there and then reflect on what we talked about today, new thing, old thing, haha. Yeah. I'll get, interesting. This felt very productive. Thank you for coming in today.
thank you for doing this. Yeah, this was a great session. Lots of food for thought. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna come back to this and reflect more.
Good. Okay, so let me do a timing check. It's 2:20. I kind of finished. Well, did I finish what I was doing? I kind of did. I might need to call it here just because.
Oh, I was gonna say that too.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
My brain feels a little bit, it's recovering from but this was really great. And then I can review too, and then we can catch up on the catch-ups over the week.
Yay!
Awesome.
All
That would
right.
be
Bye.
lovely. Great, bye. Okay. All right, folks in the Twitch chat and YouTube. Ooh, that's cool. That's neat. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Somebody was talking to the YouTube at one point and I missed them, but that's okay. They can always, yeah. Thanks for being here. I hope this was helpful. I did this one to YouTube also, so there should be a copy of it over there. If you like re-listening to these to node harder, as I call it. I think I kind of, sometimes I'm like, I think I did it. I think I understand the brain. And then I think about the daunting overwhelm of where everybody else is. Then no, I'm talking to the sky. But you too, Kyle. All right, I'm just gonna go. All right, you're all wonderful. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here. Yeah, right. That one's nice to have in the YouTube. Yeah, because that holy poopity doopities. Okay, all right. I'm gonna go lie down and forget he exists again, or re-listen to my voicemail from my autism assessor telling me that he's crazy. That felt good. Okay, all right. Bye.